All right, we are here to talk about sex tonight. I'm a sexuality educator and a clinical sexologist, so helping people talk about sex is one of the things that I do, and I enjoy it. And I do. All right, so, and when I say talking about sex, I know what usually comes to mind, but I'm really talking about a much larger concept. I'm talking about our sexuality, and our sexuality encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses our gender and our gender roles, how we experience our bodies, how we move in the world, how we experience other people's reaction to us. It's about intimacy and pleasure. It's about who we are, not just what we do. And our sexuality is expressed in a lot of ways. It can be evidenced in our awkward family photos. Our sexuality is also expressed in how we dance and how we dress and what jokes we tell. And there are sexual conversations going on all the time. Avoiding talking about sex isn't really realistic. It's not really wise either. We need to be able to communicate about sexuality if we're going to develop into sexually healthy, happy people, physically, emotionally, spiritually. There are opportunities to talk about sex all over, and if you're a parent like me, these opportunities surface earlier than you might think. So it's good to be prepared to know how to respond to these questions that might arise. And it's not just about talking to kids, it's really about talking to everyone in your life, even your grandparents, as scary as that might be. Everyone is a sexual person, and so if you become comfortable talking about sexuality, you never know what interesting conversations might come up. So the first thing is to always affirm. If you need to, pause. Take a deep breath, say a little prayer, but whatever situation comes up, try to think of something positive that you can say to affirm this person or the situation that's kind of happened. And then inform, share your vast knowledge. And if you don't have knowledge, it's okay to say, you know what? I'm not quite sure about that. I've never heard of that before, but you know what? Let's investigate. Let's research that together. It's okay to not know sometimes. Clarifying values is extremely important, especially if you're a parent. Kids want and need to know what their parents think about sexuality. It's how they frame their own values. But also as peers, it's important to share our values so that we can learn from each other. With our partners and spouses, it's really critical. Also, setting boundaries. This is a skill we aren't taught, and I'm not talking about do this, don't do that. I'm talking about how to create and maintain safe spaces for us to develop. It's a right and a responsibility of each person to know their boundaries. And then preparing for the future. Sexuality isn't an on and off switch. It's from our first breath to our last. We're sexual people, and we need to be thinking about how we're growing and changing and exploring. So how do these things play out in real life? 2 examples. First, you walk in on your little son, 5 years old, playing doctor with the little girl from next door, right? Gasp, gasp. Okay, what do I do? Affirm. Aren't bodies amazing? Inform. You each have different bodies, and they're perfectly normal, and they're equally wonderful. Clarify values. In our house, we respect each other's privacy, and so set boundaries. We're going to play with our clothes on from now on, okay? And prepare for the future. If someone asks you to play with your clothes off, next time come talk to me first, right? Now what do you do when it's with a spouse or partner and say they bring up a topic that kind of sets you up, surprises you, or shares a fantasy with you that you're thinking, okay, how do I respond? First, affirm. Thank you for trusting me enough to share this with me, for being vulnerable with me. Inform. Maybe that's not something I'm particularly interested in, but clarify values. I value you and our relationship, and I want to keep things fresh and exciting. So boundaries, let's do something that we can do together that's interesting to us both, and then let's plan a date to do that. So stop, collaborate, and listen. This should not, I'm making it sound like it's all you talking, but it's really not. You need to stop and listen. This needs to be a dialogue and not a diatribe, all right? And then think positive, keep it light. Approach discussions about sexuality with a sense of humor and adventure. This can be a fun conversation. It can be enjoyable. And it's really not about them expecting you to be an expert as much as being a safe person. And then I want you to get across that whatever questions come up, I'm not prescribing answers as much as a framework, because you're going to fill in those blanks, affirm, set boundaries with what's appropriate for you and your family and your traditions, and that's exactly how you make it a no-sweat sex talk, is you make it your own. And then that way it's a way for you to genuinely share about who you are and what you think, all right? So I hope that's come across, and I thank you for your time.